Hey everyone, Ridgid just came out with their new 18-volt digital inflator. This inflator is a hybrid model, so it can be used with their 18-volt battery, or it can be plugged into a cigarette lighter in a car and be used to pump tires up in that fashion. We're going to go through this unit top to bottom, tell you everything you need to know about it, which some things are very important, and we're also going to show you our testing as to how it performed. Stick with us. First, I think it's very important to note that this unit has a 5-minute duty cycle. So after 5 minutes of use, it needs to rest for 5 minutes and then be used again. That rest is important, and we're going to prove that to you in this video. The Ridgid Digital Inflator is model number R87044, and it is fairly basic. It does have a design in the back that allows you to easily change between manual in autofill mode. Autofill will allow you to choose a PSI, pull the trigger, it will automatically fill to that PSI and turn off. Basically, you have a 0 to 150 PSI setting here. The tool can be used with a battery, as we stated, and or the plug, which the plug for the cigarette lighter plugs in just below the battery. It's nice, it's tucked out of the way, so that works well. If you want to fill something other than a Schrader valve, you can take these other fill adapters that they have here and plug them in. This is for children's toys, basically, obviously any type of sporting ball, and then this is your adapter to go to Presta valves. I do not have a lot of great luck with using those adapters to go to a Presta valve. I tried it on this one with my bike, and I've had the same luck as I have had in the past, which is not good. It seems to want to unscrew the Presta valve when I remove it. This does have a 20-inch hose on the top, and it does have a plastic quick connect fitting. We're going to go through this and try it out and see what works and what doesn't. Let's get to our first test, which is going to be testing out Ridgid's claim that it's very fast in pumping up a truck tire from 0 on up. We grabbed a simple trailer tire, same size as most truck tires, let all the air out of it, and we're going to pump it up from 0 to 40 PSI and just basically go through the time of what it would take. This is a test that Ridgid says it'll do. It's the fastest for pumping up a truck tire from flat to full. I don't believe that this is really the use of what these are meant for because of that duty cycle. That 5 minutes is there, and then you need to have it rest 5 minutes. So if you had to pump up 4 tires, it's going to take you a long time. This test basically came down to 5 minutes and 46 seconds to pump this tire from 0 to 40 PSI. So we then had to let the tool rest. While we're letting the tool rest, we decided to check the air pressure inside the tire to see if it matched up, and it was within 0.2 PSI, which is excellent. Then got out the thermal imager. That says that we have some fairly higher temps that are going to be pushing the air into the tire at higher temps, and also higher temps on the tool, which we got to about 160 degrees on the tool. That's one of the reasons why they want this resting period. But even after the resting period, the tool is still going to be quite warm. After 7 minutes of rest, we decided to try to take this trailer tire from 40 to 80 PSI, which 80 PSI is what this trailer tire should be run at. We wanted to stay within the 5-minute runtime because we didn't want to just totally kill this tool off the bat, but we wanted to see what was going to happen after you had the duty cycle go in between there and kind of show temps of really why this duty cycle is important. So after 5 minutes, we got to 67 PSI. That's good. We got 27 PSI in 5 minutes as you get up in that range. The issue is when we pull out the thermal imager, we got temps over 200 degrees in different areas. So if we were to let this tool rest again and go back at it, we would just see those temperatures probably continue to climb and climb and climb, which at some point gets to be dangerous and not good for the tool. So we're going to put this tool down for a little bit and then come back to something else later. This tool can be easily used to fill up different sporting equipment. You have your needle here, which you're just going to push in slightly and then clip it into place. They don't want this needle to go any further than flush with the quick connect. We simply put this into the ball, pull the trigger to turn it on. We're going to use auto mode here. This says to fill to 7 pounds. And this is one of the places where they recommend using manual, but we're just going to try it out and let it go. Now this is going to turn on and be loud, and I'm not going to adjust the volume, so headphone users beware, but I want you to hear this unit. There is multiple levels and different noises that you'll hear as this unit gets closer to the PSI amount. And it did fill to 7 if we're going to trust that. If you go over to manual and just let it sit, it's telling you it's at 9. So sometimes it's nice to check out what things are at. But if you just wanted to add a hair more of pressure to this ball, you could use the manual setting and pull the trigger, turn it off, and it will pump it up and go from there. That just added 1 PSI, but you can see the gauge is fairly inaccurate while it's actually pumping things up. So with these tests, I think it's important to note that duty cycle, and I really believe that people who are buying this unit are not buying it to pump something up from a flat all the way to 40 PSI or to 80 PSI, and if you are, this might not be the right tool, in my opinion, if you're going to go by the duty cycle. If you're just going to let the tool go and do its thing and come back and let it automatically work, and by all means, enjoy it, but you are going to be abusing the tool at that point. What I really think this is going to be good for is simply checking your tires as you have temperature differentiations. Said that right, hope. Basically, when we run into wintertime in Michigan, it's always nice to check your tires, see what they're pumped up at, adjust, or in the springtime, just make sure that everything's set. So this tool really works well in that situation. And I was working on my truck and I got to test out this cord. Now, while using the cord, there is a little bit of a different sound because you're using 12 volts and it's coming through a cigarette lighter, which if you've looked how any of these cigarette lighters are wired, they are wired with very small wires. So it can't pull a ton of energy from that plug. So while running off 12 volt, you might find that it is just slightly slower at pumping up the tires. Not much and not really noticeable. Now, when we go into the general overall perspective of what I think of this tool, it really works well, but there are a few things that I'd like to point out that affect me maybe more than they will anyone else. The first one that seems to get in the way for me is this plastic quick connect fitting. All of the other inflators that I work with have a simple screw-on small brass fitting at the end that works. This one is supposed to be faster. It is plastic. In my mind, I would much rather have metal than plastic, even in a quick connect. And for me, the quick connect is not as nice to put on certain vehicles. So I have bead locks or simulated bead locks on our Raptor. This is very, very hard to get in that tiny place and get it to be locked because you have to push this forward piece to lock it in place. There's not enough room in there and it makes it difficult to do. So if I was continually pumping that truck's tires up, I would grab a different unit than this one just because I could get the other ones smaller and screw them on, and it would be easier rather than me trying to fat finger it, get in there and push these forward. So the downside is tight spaces. This quick connect isn't as good as others. The second downside long term might be the fact that I guess you can replace it because it does come apart a little bit if there were parts that broke or if they needed to be serviced. But at the same place, I really enjoyed the metal screw-on fittings and wish this unit had it. Other thing that kind of separates this unit from the other models that I have used, which includes the DeWalt, the Ryobi, the Milwaukee, is the noise level. I had some video issues in the beginning, which is why there is no noise in some areas. I just had a microphone battery die, but what ended up really happening is I felt like I was yelling after this guy was on, and it is significantly louder than others. Is it significantly faster than others? I don't know. Even you can go back to my other videos, I've timed multiples of these out, and the reality is it might be, but you pay the price in noise. So when you use it, it's a little bit louder. I really do like the trigger on it, especially when you get into the manual mode. It's very simple, it's very easy to use. I like the dial on the back when you turn it on. I like the way that it shows you the PSI and it doesn't stick with the number that you have it turned to for very long. See, it was 60 right to 0. I like that. I like how it's easy to use. This feels like it's a very quality piece. It's blue with a white background, so it's easier to see in the sun than it would be if you had different LED screens. It's a great size. I wish it went down into tenths of PSI. That would have been really nice, at least to see for me, because most of the other units do. I don't know if they're accurate to the tenths of the PSI, but it gives me that warm and fuzzy feeling on the inside. Typical Ridgid grip that you would expect. I like how the battery goes on and off. If you're using this 12-volt system, realistically, it doesn't sit up anymore. It has to sit in its side, and that's, as I said before, you have to find a 12-volt plug within 11 feet of where you're pumping something up. So that will work and won't work in different situations. Having everything on board and up front is great, but this Presta fitting sits on top of your needle valve, and it just sits there. So when you're using your needle valve, this Presta adapter gets pushed aside. Personally, I think that's going to be the first thing that I will lose, but I do like that it is a metal Presta fitting and not plastic. That is a huge plus, because when you go to the Milwaukee, they give you a plastic Presta fitting instead of metal. 6 to 1, right? It just, I'm not disappointed in this unit at all. I like it. I wish it was a little less noisy, and I wish it had the normal screw in. Some people are going to be completely different feeling than that. They're going to love this quick connect. They're going to love that everything works fast, and they're not going to care about the noise. Either way, I'm super interested in what you think about my comments, and then compare it to what will work and won't work for you, and how you think my review and my critiques would go against you, the purchaser. So that always interests me quite a bit. So leave a ton of comments below. If you haven't, please give us a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and as always, have a great day.